What do you do with your loneliness? One of the massive results of the invasion of privacy so characteristic of our times is the increasing fear of being alone. Loneliness is of many kinds. There is the loneliness of a great bitterness, when the pain is so great that any contact with others threatens to open old wounds and to awaken old frenzies. There is the loneliness of the broken heart and the dead friendship, when what was full of promise and fulfillment lost its way in a fog of misunderstanding, anxiety, and fear. There is the loneliness of those who have absorbed so much of violence that all hurt has died, leaving only the charred reminder of a lost awareness. There is the loneliness of the shy and the retiring, where timidity stands guard against all encounters, and the will to relate to others is stilled. There is the loneliness of despair, the exhaustion of the spirit, leaving no strength to try again. The promise of the second wind can find no backing. There is the loneliness of death, when silently a man listens one by one to the closing of all doors, and all that remains is naked life, stripped of everything that shields, protects, and insulates. But there is loneliness in another key. There is the loneliness of the truth seeker whose search swings him out beyond all frontiers and all boundaries until there bursts upon his view a fleeting moment of utter awareness, and he knows beyond all doubt, all contradictions. There is the loneliness of the moment of integrity, when the declaration of the self is demanded and the commitment gives no corner to sham, to pretense, or to lying. There is the loneliness in the moment of creation, when the new comes into being, trembles, then steadies, and finds its way. There is the loneliness of those who walk with God until the path takes them out beyond all creeds and all faiths, and they know the wholeness of communion and the bliss of finally being understood. Loneliness is of many kinds. What do you do with yours? Father, I do not know how it seems to others, but for me. I am but a little child, wandering along the seashore, admiring here and there a pebble for its beauty and its shape, while the great ocean of truth stretches out before me, boundless and unexplored. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. Amen. We come to the end of our journey together, and as an immediate background for our thinking this morning about Jesus and the tempter in Gethsemane, I'm reading an unpublished poem on Judas Iscariot. The day I was born, so my mother says, the sun could not be seen from dawn to dusk. The clouds tipped all the trees with gloom. The old folks shook their heads. It's a bad sign, they said. Years before I met the Master, I saw his eyes in all my dreams. Face to face we met on the dusty road. He spoke, my heart replied. The pent-up hunger of my restless years poured forth, bringing the clean, limpid feeling of pure relief. We understood without the aid of speech. The others talked their thoughts, but between us, only the muted or the crackling silence. Sometimes he seemed remote and far away, sometimes as close as air I breathed. Awareness would not let us go. At last, Jerusalem and the temple. I remember his eyes, the frightened doves, the overturned tables, the outraged cries. My heart rejoiced. The end was near for vaunting Roman and apostate Jew. That night, while others slept, we talked. We matched the secrets of our hearts. Like light appearing in a darkened room, I knew. How could I have been so blind? I felt betrayed, outraged, uprooted from my place. I fought with the only sword my hand could reach, not for him, not for my own poor self, but for God's own holy cause. He was the enemy, no Messiah he. And now it's done. And I'm alone, bereft. What I have lost in life, in death, may I find again. We see him in the garden. And the far-reaching significance of all of the churning struggle symbolized in various dimensions of his experience up to this time, epitomized in the figure of the tempter, now became desperate. Father, let the cup pass. What was literal truth in him must become literal fact in the world in which he moved and worked and lived and dreamed and dared. And there is a time interval that is very important. If that which is literal truth must become or may become literal fact, and I need more time. Is there some other way? If I could work a little longer finding my way into the very substance and stuff of the mind and the spirit of the disciples. But over and over again, in the months of our intimate togetherness, at moments when it seemed as if that which was most radiant in me was also kindled in them, darkness settled down. And I felt as if I must start over again. Even Peter, so perceptive. I remember when I asked him, did he love me? And I was very careful in asking him to use the word that would hold in him if he responded in like kind, until that which was literally true in him would become literal fact in the for-instancing of his life, in the creative processes of his mind, in all of the aspects of his work and living and moving. And I waited with bated breath and heart in my throat as he replied. And when he replied, he could not use the strong word for love that I used. He could not find his way into the root and say, agapao. All he could do, phileo. And I tried again. Do you love me? And when he came back, I was sure he would say it now. Phileo. That's all. And with heavy heart, when I asked him the third time, I said, phileo. I need more time. It is not that I am afraid to die. No, not that death. And yet to die now places me into the swirling vortex of the great issue of the human spirit as it has to come to grips with the fact of death. For death, even though it is not something that happens to life, but something that happens in life. Death, even though it be episodic and eventful, and therefore it belongs in the sequence of time-space events, yet this very fact about death is the thing that is so shattering. For death is a denial of the future. And if there be no future, how can that which is literal truth have an extended time interval in which to become literal fact? But it may be that death is not the worst thing in the world. Let the cup pass, Father. I will not dare to say for how long to let the cup pass. But let it pass now. And all the encounters with the tempter are culminated here. And then the great, great, great thing happened. There was no opening of the heavens as at the baptism, when the Spirit descended like a dove. There were no words echoing through all the corridors of his being, sounding with great triumph and delight that at last the imprimatur is upon me. No. Only great tears, deep and terrifying anguish, and moving up out of the very essence of the anguish, thy will be done. Even though I may not be able, in the throes of my anguish, to see. I trust. For it is thy kingdom, Father. And if, with all that there is within me, with all the funded, cumulative distillations of all the communions and the fellowships and the intimacies which we've had, with all of this, before me, I say yes, 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 yes. And with the affirmation, death becomes death. Nothing more. Just death. Nothing more. For the test of life again and again is found when the agonies of life are not relieved. And the peace of God comes so many times. In the midst of the breaking heart and the anguishing of the spirit. It comes sometimes on the crest of a wave of pain. It is the spear of frustration transformed into a shaft of light. Let the cup pass. I yield. My times are in thy hands. And when in my own moments of greatest hopelessness and despair, when there seems to be so much that casts down and depresses, and so little that uplifts and inspires. When I sit in the shadow of all my broken aspirations and see that upon which my mind and spirit have been set as the will of God turn to ashes in my hands, I remember and my heart rejoices, and my hopes are renewed, and I become aware, as if for the first time, of the love of God. Let the cup pass. Nevertheless, thy will be done.